I don't remember hitting the floor. One moment I was in my kitchen, staring at a sink full of dishes I kept saying I'd get to after work. The next, I woke up in a white room that smelled like bleach and plastic, with a steady beeping sound keeping time somewhere above my head. At first, I thought it was early morning. The light was soft, my mouth was dry, and my chest felt heavy, like someone had set a toolbox on it and forgotten to move it. I tried to lift my hand and something tugged at my skin. That was when I realized there were tubes in my arm. I blinked until the ceiling stopped swimming and came into focus. Then I turned my head. There was a man sitting in the chair beside my bed. Not a doctor. Not a nurse. A man in a dark blue blazer, open at the collar, no tie. Fresh haircut, trimmed beard, good watch on his wrist. He was leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. In his hand, he held a bouquet of red roses. For a few seconds, I thought maybe my mind was still foggy. I'm Leonard Brooks, 62 years old. I don't have friends who show up with roses. Maybe my sister had sent someone. Maybe the room was mixed up. Then he looked up and saw my eyes open. "Oh," he said, straightening up in the chair. His voice shook a little at the start, then smoothed out. "Mr. Brooks. You're awake." His face was familiar in that way where you know you've seen someone before but can't place the moment. Grocery store, maybe. Church parking lot. One of those faces that lives on the edge of your memory. My throat burned when I tried to speak, so nothing came out. I just watched him. He stood up quickly, glanced at the door, then back at me. "Is Angela here yet?" he asked. She usually gets here early." Hearing my wife's name in his mouth hit harder than the pain in my chest. "No, Mrs. Brooks. No, your wife. Just Angela," said with the kind of ease you don't get from a waiting room greeting. He shifted the roses in his hand, looked down at them, then over at the side table where a few wilted carnations sat in a hospital vase. "I brought these for her," he said, almost under his breath. "She's been under a lot of stress." I stared at the flowers. Deep red, wrapped in clear plastic with a little silver ribbon. The kind of thing you pick up when you want to impress someone. Before I could fight my way through the dryness in my throat, there was a soft knock and a nurse walked in. Short, brown-skinned, quick eyes that took in everything. Her badge read Jennings, Carla. "Oh, you're awake, Mr. Brooks," she said, smiling at me before glancing at the man with the roses. "You heading out, sir?" "Yeah," he answered. "Can you make sure these get to Angela? Tell her I'll call her later." He placed the roses in Carla's hands, gave me one last look that he couldn't quite hold, then walked out without another word. The door closed behind him. Nurse Carla set the flowers down on the counter beneath the whiteboard where my name and the date were written in black marker. She checked the machines, my chart. "How you feeling, Mr. Brooks?" she asked gently. I forced out a rough whisper. "Who was that?" She hesitated for half a second. It was small, but I saw it. "I thought he was family," she said carefully. "He's been here a lot." "For your wife." She smiled, but her eyes watched my face. I turned my head toward the roses and let the beeping fill the silence. My heart had already failed once. Lying there in that hospital bed, I had the quiet, steady feeling it was about to be tested in a different way. Before that morning in the hospital, I thought I understood the shape of my life. I'm not saying it was perfect. Just predictable. And for a man my age, predictability feels like safety. My day started the same way for the last 20 years. I'd wake up before sunrise, even on weekends, because once your body learns that rhythm, it doesn't forget it. My joints always popped a little when I swung my legs out of bed, but I'd learned to take it slow, sit there on the edge of the mattress for a few breaths before standing. The house was usually quiet at that hour. Too quiet sometimes. The kind of quiet you almost don't notice until one day you realize you're the only one awake because you're the only one who has somewhere to be that early. Angela would stay asleep, curled on her side with a silk scarf on her head, breathing steady. Back in our younger years, she used to wake up when I did, follow me to the kitchen, and make coffee while I got dressed. She'd sit at the table telling me what she dreamed about. But as years went on, her mornings shifted later and mine didn't change, and somewhere in that gap we stopped sharing that quiet hour together. Most mornings, I'd head to the kitchen by myself, make a small pot of coffee, and sit in the same chair I've sat in since 1999. That chair has seen me through job promotions, Malik's school years, Angela's rough days, and long nights when I worked overtime fixing broken boilers and cafeteria refrigerators. I'm a maintenance supervisor at a public high school. Not a glamorous job, but a real one. I made peace with the fact that nobody thanks the man who mops up leaks at 6 a.m. or unclogs sinks before first period. People only notice you when things stop working. But I like being the steady one, the one folks depend on when something breaks. My routine was simple. After coffee, I'd pack my lunch, usually leftovers, and head out the door by 6:15. The drive to the school took 12 minutes if the lights were in my favor. I'd pull up, nod at the security guard, and walk the long hallway while the building was still half asleep. That walk always made me feel grounded. The hum of the heaters, the distant echo of my own footsteps, the smell of floor wax. It reminded me that work, at least, made sense. Machines broke, pipes burst, tiles cracked. You fix them. You move on. Home, though. Home was more complicated. Angela and I have been married for 32 years. We met at a cookout when she was still working the front desk at a dentist's office, and I was doing night shifts at a warehouse. She had the biggest smile in the park, I remember that. She wore a bright yellow sundress and kept brushing her hair behind her ear while she talked to me. Back then, I thought she lit up every room she walked into. Over time, life settled into its routines. Malik was born, Angela became the office manager at her clinic, and our home turned into the kind of place where birthdays were always remembered, and Sunday dinners always smelled like baked chicken and collard greens. But somewhere around our late 40s, things started to change. Not suddenly, more like gradual weathering. Angela started hanging around with a different crowd at her clinic. They liked happy hours on weekdays, group trips to spas, wine-tasting events, little things that kept her out late. She'd show me pictures sometimes, her posing at rooftop bars or dressed up for office celebrations. She looked happy in those photos. Happier than she looked when she came home. I remember one night clearly. She came home at almost midnight, smelling like a perfume that wasn't hers. I didn't say anything. I told myself I was imagining it, that sense cling to people when they sit close in crowded places. I wanted to believe the best of her because believing anything else felt like opening a door I wasn't ready to look through. Our conversations grew shorter. Our dinners quieter. Our good nights more routine than affectionate. But I convinced myself this was just what happens in long marriages, that comfort sometimes looks like distance. Malik noticed before I did, I think. He'd stop by on Sundays and talk to Angela, and she'd smile but seem distracted, checking her phone more often than usual. I'd catch Malik watching her with that look he gets when he's trying to figure out if he should say something. One afternoon, after he'd helped me replace a loose board on the back deck, he asked, "Dad, everything good with you and Mom?" I just nodded and said, "We're fine. Just busy." He didn't press, but I could tell he didn't believe me. I guess I didn't believe myself either. I kept pushing forward, staying focused on work, telling myself marriages change and people mature in different directions. I didn't want to be the kind of man who jumps to conclusions. Suspicion is heavy when you carry it alone, and I didn't have proof of anything. Just small moments. Late nights. A perfume that didn't belong to her. A smile that wasn't meant for me. People think heartbreak comes in one big explosion. But for most of us, it arrives piece by piece, like drips from a leaking faucet you keep saying you'll fix, but don't. Not until you wake up drowning. Looking back, I can see all the signs. At the time, though, I thought I was just getting older and she was just growing distant. It's strange how the mind protects you by filtering what you're not ready to face. I had no idea that the man sitting at my hospital bed, the one holding roses meant for my wife, was the final missing piece in a puzzle I'd been avoiding for years. That morning in the hospital didn't create a problem. It revealed one that had been growing quietly while I went to work, paid bills, fixed broken things, and tried my best to keep peace in a home I didn't realize was already slipping away from me. The first hours after I woke up in that hospital room felt like walking through fog. The doctors came in, one at a time, explaining what had happened. Heart attack. Blocked artery. Lucky timing. Words like that. They talked more to Angela than to me at first. She had rushed in not long after that man with the roses left. Her hair was pulled back in a hurry, and there was no makeup on her face, which is how I knew they really had called her out of her day, wherever she had been. She stood on my right side, holding the rail of the bed instead of my hand. I noticed that right away. The doctor said something about lifestyle changes, diet, medication schedules. I nodded when they looked at me, but my head kept circling back to that question. Is Angela here yet? She usually gets here early. I watched her out of the corner of my eye. She seemed shaken, but not destroyed. Concerned, but not broken. When you've been married to someone as long as I have, you learn how they look when they are really afraid and how they look when they know they should be. She stayed for a few hours that first day. Answered calls. Sent messages. Stepped out to talk to the insurance more than once. Every time she walked out, I watched the door longer than I needed to. Later that evening, after the doctors left and the monitors settled into their steady rhythm, Nurse Carla came back in to check on me. You doing all right, Mr. Brooks? She asked, adjusting the foreline with practiced hands. I nodded. I'm here, I said quietly. That's what matters, she answered. You scared us for a minute. I glanced over at the counter where the roses still sat, wrapped in plastic, standing out against the pale room. You ever see that man before? I asked, keeping my voice low. She followed my eyes to the flowers and took a breath before speaking. He's been here almost every day since you came in, she said. First day he told us he was family. Said he was here to support your wife. Family? I repeated. That's what he said, she replied. I don't assume anything. People got all kinds of families these days. There was no judgment in her tone, just honesty. She was giving me information, not trying to stir trouble. Does he sign in? I asked. She nodded toward the hallway. All visitors do. There's a log at the nurse's station. Hospital rules. I didn't say anything for a while. She finished charting my vitals on her tablet, then looked at me like she was trying to decide if she should say more. You want me to bring your wife in when she gets back? She asked. I shook my head. Let her come when she comes. That first night, I didn't sleep much. Not because of the pain. Pain I can handle. I've lived with an aching back and sore knees for years. What kept me awake was the feeling that something important had shifted and I was the last one to be told. The next morning, Angela arrived around 10. I had been awake for hours, watching the light change on the ceiling. You look better today, she said, setting her purse on the visitor's chair and leaning over to kiss my forehead. I watched her eyes. They were kind but distant, like she was looking at me and through me at the same time. How long was I out? I asked. Couple of days, she said. They called me from work when you came in. I've been here as much as I can. As much as you can, I repeated slowly. You been here every day? Yes, she answered quickly. Every day. She grabbed the chair and pulled it close, smoothing the blanket over my legs. Don't worry about all that right now, she said. You just need to focus on getting better. The doctor said you scared everyone. Everyone? I asked. Me. Malik. The nurses. She laughed lightly, but it didn't reach her eyes. The whole floor probably heard them rushing around when you came in. She talked about bills, insurance paperwork, and the arrangements she would have to make with work. What she didn't talk about was the roses on the counter or the man who brought them. I noticed that. When she stepped out to make a phone call, I watched the door again. A few minutes later, I heard her voice in the hallway. Not the words. Just the sound. Softer than it was with me. After she left that day, I asked Carla if she could do something for me. Depends what it is, she said with a small smile. Next time that man comes, I said, keeping my voice steady, I want you to write down his name for me. I want to know exactly what he's signing. She studied my face, then nodded once. You sure you want that information, Mr. Brooks? Yes, I answered. I'm sure. The next couple of days became a quiet test of my patience. Angela came and went. Sometimes she stayed an hour. Sometimes just long enough to ask how I was, straighten the blanket, check with the doctor, and leave before visiting hours were even over. She always said she had to get back to the office, or home, or the pharmacy. Things are just crazy right now, she kept saying. With you in here, I've got to keep everything running. I listened and nodded, but I also watched the clock in the door. On the third day after I woke up, Malik came by. Seeing my son walk in, tall and tired from work, made something settle inside me. Hey, old man, he said gently, trying to smile as he pulled up a chair. Watch your mouth, I answered, managing a small laugh. I'm not that old. He looked at the monitors like they were personal enemies. You scared me, he said. Mom called me from the hospital and I thought. He didn't finish the sentence, and I didn't make him. We talked about his job, the new project he was working on, little things like that. After a while, he glanced at the flowers. Who brought those? He asked. I held his gaze. Good question, I answered. He frowned slightly, but before he could ask more, Angela walked in. There's my boys, she said, trying for cheerfulness. You two talking about me? Always, I replied lightly. She kissed Malik's head, checked her phone, and started talking about the cardiologist's notes. Watching the two of them together hurt in a different way. He still looked at her like she could fix almost anything. I remembered when I used to look at her that way too. Later that afternoon, after they both left, Carla stepped into the room, closing the door behind her halfway. I got that name for you, she said quietly. She handed me a folded sticky note. My fingers trembled a little as I opened it. Visitor, Darren Cole. Been on the log almost every day since you were admitted, she said. Usually in the morning. Sometimes in the evening too. She didn't say more, and she didn't need to. Thank you, I said. She nodded. If you ever want to talk to someone from social work or the chaplain, you let me know. We see a lot of things in here. You're not the first patient to deal with more than one kind of heart trouble at the same time. I let out a slow breath. I appreciate that. When she left, I stared at the name on that little piece of paper for a long time. I said it out loud a few times. Darren Cole. It didn't mean much at first. Just a name. Could have been a coworker. Could have been an old friend. Could have been anything. But the way he held those roses. The way he said her name. The way he asked if she was there yet before he asked anything about me. Those weren't the actions of some distant acquaintance who came by out of polite concern. Over the next days, I started to notice small things I had overlooked before. One evening, I woke up from a light sleep and heard voices outside my door. The curtain wasn't fully drawn, and I could see just enough through the crack. Angela stood close to a man's shoulder, her head tilted up. I couldn't see his face from that angle, but I recognized the blazer. Same dark blue as before. Same watch. I can't stay long, she was saying. He's awake more now. We have to be careful. We'll figure it out, the man answered. Once he's home and stable, we'll talk. I don't want you stressing. My heart monitor picked up for a moment, beeping faster. I stared at the ceiling and forced myself to breathe slow. They didn't know I was awake. They didn't know I could hear enough. Not everything. Just enough. As their voices faded down the hall, something inside me settled in a way I didn't expect. Not calm. Not acceptance. More like clarity. I realized then that the hospital bed, the beeping, the 4 lines, those things had stripped my life down to the essentials. No distractions. No busy schedules. Just time and truth. The first clues had been there for years, they just hadn't had a name. Now they did. Darren Cole. Red roses. Visitor logs. Whispered conversations in hallways. My heart was weaker than before, but my mind was sharper than it had been in a long time. I knew I was sick. But I also knew I wasn't blind anymore. I don't know what hurts more, the moment you discover the truth, or the memory of all the times you ignored it. The days in that hospital passed slowly. My body healed inch by inch, but my mind. It sharpened. Cleared. Focused in a way it hadn't been in years. Every time Angela walked into that room, I found myself listening for the echoes of those whispered hallway conversations. Not because I wanted to catch her. Because I needed to understand what kind of life I had been living without realizing it. The betrayal didn't arrive in a single blow. It came quietly, revealed in small pieces, like someone pulling nails from a house you thought would stand forever. And the first big piece fell on a Thursday evening. The hallway was dim when I woke from a nap, one of those groggy half-sleeps where you still hear everything around you. I heard Angela's voice before I opened my eyes. "I told you we shouldn't have come at the same time," she whispered sharply. My eyes stayed closed. My breathing stayed even. I didn't move. I wanted to hear. A man's voice answered. Calm. Confident. Familiar. "You were worried he'd be awake," he said. "He's been sleeping every time I come." "If someone sees us," Angela started. "Then we say we're friends supporting the family," he interrupted. "You said the nurses already think that." A beat of silence. Then the soft sound of fabric brushing against clothing, like he had touched her arm. "You don't need to stress," he said gently. "He's getting better. Once he's home, we'll talk through everything. Just like we planned." Planned. That word settled into my chest heavier than any heart monitor. "For now," Darren continued, "I just want to see you. That's it. That's all I came for." Angela sighed quietly. Not frustrated. Relieved. The kind of sigh you give someone you trust with your whole heart. "That's not smart," she whispered, but her tone wasn't refusing him. It was wanting him. Footsteps approached. I kept my eyes closed and my breathing slow, pretending to be asleep as the door eased open. Angela stepped inside first. I knew her footsteps like my own heartbeat. Darren's steps followed, steady, confident, too familiar with the way he moved around my room. They came to the side of the bed. I stayed still. "He's out," Angela murmured. "Let's go." "I just want a minute," Darren said quietly. "A minute for what?" she whispered back. "For you." Angela hesitated. I heard the shift of her shoes against the floor, the tiny movement of a woman torn between guilt and desire. She didn't answer him, but she didn't walk away either. Then her voice dropped softer. "So much has happened. I haven't even had time to think." "That's because you're carrying everything by yourself," Darren whispered. "You don't have to." I felt the air change, like they were leaning closer to each other. No touching. But close enough. "I can't talk here," Angela finally said. "I can't do this here." He exhaled quietly but didn't argue. "Tomorrow," he said. "After work." A pause. Soft footsteps. The door closing. Silence. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. The truth wasn't a sudden strike. It was a confirmation of something that had already been living quietly in the corner of my mind. I didn't feel anger. Not the kind that makes you shake or raise your voice. Just a slow, steady realization that my marriage had been held together by habit, not love, for longer than I wanted to admit. Later that night, after Angela had gone home, Nurse Carla came in on her rounds. She noticed my eyes were open and sat down without being asked. "You all right?" she asked. "I'm awake," I said quietly. "Doesn't mean I'm all right." She nodded. "You heard something." "Enough," I answered. She folded her hands. "You want to talk about it?" "No," I said gently. "Not yet." She studied me the way people study a crack in a wall, trying to see how deep it goes. Then she placed her hand on the rail of my bed. "You let me know when you do," she said. She walked out, leaving me alone with a silence that didn't feel peaceful anymore. The next morning, I asked Malik to bring me my black folder from home. "Everything in there?" he asked. "Everything important," I said. "Insurance basics. Property paperwork. Bank accounts. Passwords. A few notes I'd written years ago for emergencies." Malik set it on the bedside table and squeezed my shoulder. "You need anything else?" "No," I said. "You've done enough." But I needed one thing from him: space. He didn't need to witness what I was starting to uncover. When he left, I opened the folder with shaky fingers. My chest wasn't hurting anymore, but something deeper was. I flipped through statements, receipts, and old paperwork. Then I saw it. A hotel charge. Not one I recognized. Not a place I had ever taken Angela. Not far from her office. I stared at it for a long time. Then I saw another one. And another. 3 charges, spread out across 3 months. All midweek. All evenings I had worked late at the school or gone to church meetings. They weren't big amounts. Just enough to stay under the radar. Just enough to assume they were for work. Then I saw something worse: charges for flowers. Not the grocery store kind I used to buy her, but an upscale florist downtown. The same florist whose ribbon was wrapped around those roses Darren left with Carla. That was when the weight of the truth finally settled in full. Angela wasn't drifting away. She was already gone. And Darren wasn't a stranger. He was someone she had been making room for in her life while I held onto a marriage built on old routines. I closed the folder slowly and set it aside. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing was steady. My heart monitor didn't spike. There's a strange calm that comes with understanding, like the moment after a storm when the last branch falls and the forest knows the danger has passed. You don't panic. You don't shout. You accept. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because it's finally clear. The full confirmation came 2 days later. It was evening again. Hospital hallways are quieter at night. Nurses speak softer. Lights dim. Machines hum like background noise. I had finally fallen into a deep sleep when a sound woke me. A phone buzzing. Not mine. Not Angela's. Someone else's. Voices followed. Soft. Urgent. I pushed myself up slowly, just enough to see the hallway through the door that wasn't fully shut. Angela. Standing close to Darren. Too close for anyone trying to hide anything. Her hand rested on his chest. His hand was on her waist. My heart didn't race. My breathing didn't stop. I just watched, quietly, like a man finally seeing the truth of his own life. "You can't come here again," Angela whispered. "Not like this." "I needed to see you," he said. "You said you were overwhelmed." "I am," she said softly. I can't handle this on my own." "You're not on your own," he answered. "I told you that." He brushed her cheek with the back of his fingers. She closed her eyes. That was the moment I knew. Not just that she was unfaithful, but that she loved him. Or thought she did. Not an accident. Not a mistake. A relationship. She leaned into him for one long second, like she had finally found air after holding her breath. "I have to go," Angela murmured, stepping back. "Tomorrow," Darren said. She nodded. Then she walked into my room. Her face was calm. Her makeup perfect. Her smile practiced. "Hey, sweetheart," she said softly, like she hadn't just been in another man's arms. "How are you feeling?" "I'm healing," I said. She didn't hear the double meaning. Or maybe she did and ignored it. She sat down and talked about the doctor's update, my medication schedule, my diet. She didn't mention being in the hallway. She didn't mention Darren. I watched her the way you watch a person through glass, present but far away. When she left that night, I didn't look at the door. I looked at the flowers Darren had brought her. They were dying now. I hadn't watered them. I wasn't going to. The final piece came the next morning when Carla stepped in after her shift change. "You ready for something?" she asked quietly. "I'm listening," I said. She handed me a folded sheet of paper. "The visitor log," she said. "Your wife's been signing in, but so has he. Sometimes within minutes of each other." I opened the paper. There it was, in black ink. Angela Brooks, 5:42 p.m. Darren Cole, 5:49 p.m. Angela Brooks, 10:16 a.m. Darren Cole, 10:02 a.m. Patterns. Overlap. Familiar timing. Carla exhaled and sat at the foot of the bed for a moment. "I'm sorry," she said. "I see a lot in this place. But I hate seeing this." "It's not your fault," I said quietly. "You want to talk to someone?" "No," I said. "I need to think." She nodded. "You let me know if you want help." After she left, I settled back in bed and stared at the ceiling. My life, the life I thought I had ended long before my heart gave out. This hospital stay didn't break my marriage. It revealed it. And for the first time in a long time, I saw everything clearly. I knew the truth. Now I needed to decide what to do with it. When you are lying in a hospital bed with wires on your chest and a plastic band on your wrist, people assume you are weak. What they forget is that your body can be weak while your mind gets stronger. Once I saw the visitor log and heard those hallway conversations, something in me shifted from confusion to decision. I stopped wondering if I was imagining things. I stopped hoping I was wrong. I accepted that my marriage was not what I thought it was. The question became simple. What kind of man did I want to be now that I knew? The next morning, after breakfast and blood pressure checks, I asked Nurse Carla if I could speak with someone from social work. "You ready now?" she asked. "I am," I said. A few hours later, a woman in her 50s came in. She had a clipboard tucked under her arm and a calm way of talking that made you feel like she had been through many hard stories before. "Mr. Brooks? I'm Ms. Allen. I'm one of the hospital social workers. The nurse said you wanted to talk?" "Yes," I said. "Not about treatment. About the rest of my life." She pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat down. "Tell me what's on your mind," she said. I spoke slowly. I did not give her every detail, but I gave her enough. I told her about the man with the roses. I told her about the visitor log. I told her about the charges I had seen in my folder. I told her that after 32 years of marriage, I had reason to believe my wife was involved with someone else. "I am not here to cry about it," I said. "I am here because I had a heart attack. I am vulnerable. And I do not want to leave this hospital and walk back into a house where everything is in her hands." Ms. Allen nodded, listening without interrupting. "You're worried about your finances. Your home. Your future," she said. "Yes," I answered. "I want to put things in order. Quietly. Before anyone realizes I'm not as helpless as they think." She took a breath and looked at the clipboard. "We have a partnership with a legal aid group," she said. "They advise patients after serious medical events. It is meant for situations like power of attorney, wills, benefits, that sort of thing. I can refer you." "That is exactly what I need," I said. She wrote down a name and number on a card and handed it to me. In the meantime, she added, you can also update some of your emergency contacts and authorizations here at the hospital. If you want certain people to be involved in your care decisions and others not to, we can document that. I thought about that for a long moment. I want my son as my primary contact, I said. Not my wife. She can be listed. But he comes first. She nodded and started the paperwork. It was not rage. It was a quiet adjustment of position. I was no longer going to stand in the place everyone expected. That evening, Malik came to visit again. He noticed the stack of papers on the tray table. What's all this? He asked. Just things I should have done years ago, I said. Emergency contacts. Planning. Your old man is not invincible. He pulled a chair closer. You're planning for, worst case? He asked carefully. I'm planning for real life, I answered. If something happens to me, I want you to know where things are and what belongs to who. I should have done this long ago. He looked at me for a while, like he wanted to ask a question and decided not to. Do you trust me with all that? He said. Yes, I answered. I always have. I asked him to bring more documents from home. The mortgage paperwork. My pension information. Copies of bank statements. Dad, he said finally, is something going on with you and Mom? I did not lie. But I did not open everything yet. Something is going on with me, I said. I am seeing things clearly. That is enough for now. He held my gaze for a few seconds, then nodded slowly. Okay, he said. If you need me, I am here. He left it at that. I was grateful. Angela kept visiting, but my way of dealing with her changed. Before, I would ask where she had been, how long she could stay, if she was resting enough. Now, I let her talk and I watched. She would tell me about work, about how the clinic could not function without her, about how stressful everything was. I barely have time to think, she said one afternoon, sitting in the chair where Darren had sat days before. I am running back and forth between here, the office, and home. People keep calling. I am doing my best. I am sure you are, I answered calmly. She steadied my face. You're quiet, she said. You look different. I am tired, I said. Different comes with that. She reached for my hand, then pulled back halfway, like something in her hesitated. You know I care, she said. I have been here every day. I looked at her for a long moment. I know you have been here, I said. And I have seen who else has been here. She froze for a split second. It was small, but I caught it. Her eyes shifted away before she forced them back. Who? She asked, trying to sound casual. People, I said. Nurses. Staff. Visitors. I could see the question behind her eyes, but I did not give her more. Not yet. She stayed a little while longer, then left early, saying she had errands. After the door closed, I exhaled slowly. I was not going to throw accusations in that room. Not in a gown, with an 4 in my arm. Not when she could still say I was confused from medication. I decided my confrontation, if there would be one, would happen on my feet, with clear paperwork and clear witnesses. A week later, the doctors said I could be discharged soon. We want you to do cardiac rehab, the cardiologist said. We also recommend you stay somewhere with support for a while. Family, preferably. Malik has space, I said. I can stay with him before I go back home. Angela did not like that. I saw it in her face. Why would you stay with Malik? She asked later. You should come home. I can take care of you. I need stairs I can manage and someone who is home in the evenings, I said. You said yourself you are barely at the house lately. Always busy. At least with Malik I know someone will be there. She frowned. You think I would not take care of you? I think you have a lot on your plate, I answered. I will not add to it. That was the first time I saw something like fear cross her face. Not because she was worried about my health. because she realized I was making decisions without asking her permission. When discharge day came, Malik drove me to his apartment. He set up a recliner in the living room, helped me shower, and made simple meals from the diet sheet the hospital gave us. During those quiet days at his place, I made the most important calls of my life. The legal aid group set me up with an attorney named Harris. He was in his 40s, spoke plainly, and did not waste time. "What do you want, Mr. Brooks?" he asked during our first meeting. "I need a clear answer to that before I can help." We were sitting in a small office with old carpet and a filing cabinet that looked older than me. Malik had driven me there and waited in the lobby. "I want two things," I said. "One, I want my house, my pension, and my savings protected. Two, I want to end my marriage in a way that is honest and calm, without shouting or scenes, but also without pretending nothing happened." "Has your wife done something specific?" he asked. "She has another man," I said. "I do not have private investigators or recordings, but I have hospital visitor logs, hotel charges, and conversations I heard with my own ears." He wrote notes. "Do you want to sue her, ruin her job, drag her through court?" he asked. "No," I answered. "I want to be free. I want my son to see that I handled this like a man, not like a child." He nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "Here's what I recommend. First, separate your money. If you have joint accounts where your paycheck or pension goes, we will open a new account in your name only and move your deposits there. Second, we get a clear picture of your assets, the house, any vehicles, retirement accounts. Third, we file for divorce quietly, with all your documentation. We do not announce it yet. We just take the legal step. Fourth, when you are ready, you can confront her with the facts and the paperwork already in place." That approach felt right. "No drama first," I said. "Facts first." "Exactly," he replied. "Emotion later, if at all." We spent that hour going over everything. The house was in both our names. My pension was in mine. Some savings accounts were joint. Some were individual. By the end of the meeting, we had a plan. He gave me a list of documents to bring next time. I already had most of them in the black folder Malik carried. "Last question," he said before I left. "Do you want this to be private, just the two of you and the court, or do you want there to be a moment where this becomes clear to family and church?" I looked at him steadily. "I am a quiet man," I said. "But I do not want to disappear as if I did something wrong. I want the truth to be known once. Not shouted, not repeated. Just laid out." He nodded. "Then when the paperwork is ready, we will talk about how you do that," he said. Around the same time, I asked to speak to my pastor. We met in his office at the church a week after I started rehab. He had prayed for me while I was in the hospital and sent messages. I appreciated that. "How are you really, Leonard?" he asked when I sat down across from him. "I am alive," I said. "But I am not the same." "That much I can see," he said quietly. I told him I had discovered things about my marriage. Not every detail, but enough. "I am not asking you to fix it," I said. "That is between me, her, and God. I am asking you for something else." "What is that?" he asked. "I want to hold a small thank you dinner in the church hall when I am strong enough," I said. "A meal to say I made it through the heart attack. I want my wife there. I want my son there. I want a few close friends there. And I want to say some things clearly one time, in front of people who know us." He thought about it. "You want to give testimony," he said. "In a way," I replied. "But not just about my heart. About my life. As long as you keep it respectful and truthful, we can arrange that," he said. "This is your church. You have the right to speak." "I intend to keep it respectful," I said. "Truthful and calm." We picked a date about a month out, to give me time to build my strength and to complete the first steps with the attorney. In the weeks that followed, I moved through 3 worlds. In one world, I was a recovering patient, walking slowly on a treadmill at rehab, taking pills from a plastic organizer, learning how to breathe through tightness in my chest. In another world, I was a client, meeting with Attorney Harris, signing forms, opening a new bank account, changing my pension's beneficiary from spouse to son, gathering copies of statements and visitor logs. In the third world, I was still a husband in name. Angela called, visited, and made plans as if we were moving back into the old routine. "I cannot wait for you to come home," she said on the phone one evening. "We will get back to normal." "There is no going back," I said quietly. "There is only going forward." She laughed like I had made a little joke. She did not understand that I meant every word. By the time the date for the church hall dinner approached, the paperwork was in motion. The divorce petition was prepared and filed. My new account was active. My pension details were updated. Our attorney had copies of hotel charges and visitor logs stored safely. All that was left was one thing: the moment where I would stop pretending. I told Angela I wanted to hold a small dinner to thank the people who supported us. "I want you there," I said. "And I want you to invite Darren. He has done so much for you during this time. It is only right that I thank him myself." Her silence on the phone stretched out. "You want me to invite him?" she asked slowly. "Yes," I said. "He should be there. This is about honesty." She hesitated. "All right," she said finally. "If you are sure." "I have never been more sure," I answered. I hung up the phone, sat back in Malik's recliner, and closed my eyes. My heart had failed once. It was beating now with help from medication and discipline. The rest of my life would be the same. Less illusion. More truth. The stage was set. Not for a show. For a simple, clear ending to a life I no longer intended to live in the dark. There's a different kind of quiet that comes over a church hall after sunset. Not the silence of emptiness, but the hush of people gathering with their own ideas of what the evening will be. Some thought they were showing up for a simple "praise God I survived" dinner. Some thought they were supporting a recovering husband. Some thought it was nothing more than a polite gesture to thank the community. Only 3 people in that room had any reason to feel nervous: Angela, Darren, and me. Everyone else came with clean hearts. The pastor opened the hall for us at 6. He helped Malik set the tables, laid out chairs, and arranged the buffet trays Angela insisted on ordering. I walked in slowly, cane in hand, doctor's orders for stability, not because I needed it, but because it sent a message. I'm still healing, but I'm standing. As people arrived, they greeted me with smiles, hugs, and pats on the shoulder. Old church friends. 2 co-workers from the high school. My niece. A couple of neighbors. Then Angela arrived. She wore a soft blue dress, subtle, tasteful, deliberate. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair done neatly. She walked toward me with a warm smile, the kind she used to give me years back, before our marriage started feeling like a partnership signed out of habit. "You look strong," she said softly. "I'm glad." I nodded. "Thank you for coming." Her eyes searched mine, looking for warmth she no longer had access to. Then the door behind her opened again. Darren walked in. Black blazer. Light shirt. Same watch he wore the day I woke to find him sitting at my bedside. He froze when he saw me. Just for a fraction of a moment. But I saw it. Angela stepped awkwardly between us. "Leonard wanted you to come," she said quickly. "To thank you for everything." I extended my hand. "Darren," I said. "Good to see you standing on your own 2 feet instead of mine." He blinked, trying to calculate what I meant. Confusion flickered across his face. He took my hand anyway. "Glad you're doing better," he said. "I am," I replied. "Better than ever." Once everyone arrived, the pastor asked us all to gather near the front. I stepped forward slowly, leaning on the podium for support. "Thank you all for being here," I said. When I had my heart attack, I didn't know if I'd ever stand in front of people I love again. So tonight isn't about food or speeches. It's about truth. The room settled into attentive silence. I want to talk about what a heart attack really does, I continued. Because it's not just your body that gives out. It's your sense of time. You start thinking about who you've become and who you can't afford to be anymore. I didn't shake. I didn't raise my voice. I spoke the way I always have, with steady honesty. For 32 years, I believed I had a marriage built on loyalty. I believed I had a wife who walked beside me. I believed routine meant peace. I turned toward Angela, then back to the room. But while I was in the hospital, recovering, I learned things. Angela stiffened. Darren stared at the ground. I continued. I learned that a man visited me more often than my own wife. I learned he brought flowers to ease her stress, not mine. I learned their signatures were side by side on the visitor logs. A murmur rippled through the room. Angela stepped forward, her voice tight. Leonard. I held up a hand, not to silence her, but to keep the moment clean. I'm not here to humiliate anyone, I said. I'm here to speak truth calmly, just once, and then move on. I turned my gaze evenly toward Darren. I watched you talk to my wife outside my hospital room. I heard the things you said. I watched the way she leaned toward you. I listened to conversations meant to be private. Darren's jaw clenched. Angela swallowed hard, her eyes shining. And by the time I got out of that hospital bed, I said, I understood that my marriage did not break that day. It had been broken for a long time. Silence. No shouting. No accusations. Just clarity. Then I reached into the folder Malik had placed on the podium. I removed 2 envelopes. One white. One manila. I held up the white one. This, I said, is for Angela. She stared at me like she was bracing for impact. This contains a full copy of the divorce papers I have already filed. It also includes documentation separating my pension, bank accounts, and personal property. I will not fight you. I will not shame you. I will simply no longer share a home with you. Her lips parted slightly. Leonard, please. This is not punishment, I said. This is closure. I handed her the envelope. Her fingers trembled as she took it. Then I opened the manila envelope. This, I said, is for transparency. I pulled out a few sheets. A copy of the visitor logs. Printouts of hotel charges. Screenshots of bank records. My notes from the overheard conversations. I held them up so everyone could see, not in detail, just as proof of preparation. No rumors. No guesswork. No lies. Just facts. Angela whispered, please don't do this. This isn't to destroy you, I said gently. It's to free both of us from pretending. I handed the second envelope to her as well. Her shoulders sagged. There was no argument left in her. Not because she gave up, but because truth, spoken calmly, removes every place to hide. Then I turned to the room and spoke clearly. I didn't survive a heart attack to return to a life where I was the last person to know what was happening in my own home. I want peace. I want dignity. I want honesty. I stepped back from the podium. If anyone here wants to know where I'm going next, I'm moving into a small place on the east side, near the school. I'm focusing on my health and my relationship with my son. And I'm letting go of everything that was built on broken ground. The pastor put a hand on my shoulder. People started to applaud, quietly and respectfully. Not for drama. For courage. Angela didn't clap. She stared at the envelopes in her hands like they were the heaviest things she had ever held. Darren's face was pale. He looked like a man who had finally been caught in his own shadow. Malik stood behind me. He wasn't smiling. But he was proud. When the evening ended, people left in small groups. Some hugged me. Some whispered, "I'm sorry," or "You deserve better." Angela approached me last. "Leonard," she said softly, "can we talk privately?" I met her eyes. "We did," I said. "Tonight was the only conversation we needed." She reached out, then let her hand drop before touching me. "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. "I know," I said. "Most things don't mean to go far. They just go where they're fed." She looked down, defeated. "If you ever need anything, I'll manage," I said with quiet certainty. "And so will you." She nodded, unable to hold my gaze. Darren tried to walk past me without speaking, but I stopped him with a calm hand on his arm. "You're not my enemy," I said. "But you're not my friend. Take care of yourself." He nodded once and left quickly. The pastor stayed behind as Malik and I gathered the last few things. "You spoke truth tonight," he said. "That's all I wanted," I answered. As Malik drove me home, he looked over at me. "Dad," he said quietly, "I'm proud of how you handled that." I exhaled long and slow. "I didn't want revenge," I said. "Just clarity." He nodded. "That's exactly what you gave," he said. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe without effort. Healing is a strange thing. It doesn't rush in like a flood. It settles quietly, the way morning light fills a room. You don't notice it at first, not until you realize you can finally see again. After the dinner at the church hall, life didn't explode. It didn't fall apart. It simply shifted into its true shape. And in that truth, I finally found some peace. Malik insisted I stay with him for a few more weeks while I built up strength. I didn't argue. He cooked simple meals, grilled chicken, baked fish, vegetables seasoned just right. He made sure I took my medications on time. He even set alarms on his phone to remind me. Most evenings, we'd sit in his living room with the TV low or turned off completely. He'd ask gentle questions, not about my marriage, not about the betrayal, but about how I felt. How my chest felt. How my nights were going. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He was trying to stand with me. I appreciated that more than he'll ever know. A few days after the dinner, Angela called. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Her voice sounded small, like she was trying to figure out who she was without the image she'd been carrying for decades. "Can we talk?" she asked. "I think we said everything that mattered," I answered. She breathed out slowly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know," I said. "And that's enough." The old me would have tried to comfort her. Would have tried to soften the blow. But the man who survived that hospital bed wasn't interested in patching something that was already gone. I hung up gently. Not angry. Just finished. That was my closure. I spent my mornings walking slowly around Malik's complex. 10 minutes at first. Then 15. Then 20. My legs got stronger. My breath steadier. My mind clearer. There's a peace in walking alone. Hearing your own footsteps, feeling your heartbeat settle into its natural rhythm, recognizing that you're still here. Some afternoons, I visited the high school. Not to work, just to talk with my coworkers, the ones who cared enough to check in on me. They welcomed me back with open arms. "Building's quieter without you," one of the janitors said. "We miss your old man wisdom," another joked. I laughed softly. It felt good to be missed for the right reasons. The principal pulled me aside. "When you're ready," she said, "your job is waiting. If you want to reduce your hours for a while, we'll make it work." I thanked her. Not because I needed the job to survive, but because it reminded me that I hadn't been replaced everywhere. Just at home. 3 weeks after the church dinner, I got the keys to my new apartment. A modest place. Nothing grand. But it was mine. A small balcony. A quiet street. A living room just big enough for a recliner, a couch, and a bookshelf. Malik helped me move in. "You sure you don't want me to stay the first night?" he asked. "I'll be fine," I said. "A man needs to stand on his own at some point." He looked around the apartment and nodded. "Feels peaceful," he said. "It does," I replied. After he left, I stood in the center of that small living room and listened to the silence. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like freedom. I unpacked slowly. Clothes first. Then dishes. Then books. Then a picture of Malik and me at his high school graduation. He had his arm around me, and I remember how proud I felt that day. I placed the picture on the shelf and stepped back. This was my home now. And I was building it with open eyes. As the days passed, I found a rhythm that felt good. Not rushed. Not strained. Just steady. Wake up. Light breakfast. Short walk. Medication. Reading. Sometimes a visit from Malik. Sometimes a visit from the pastor. Sometimes just quiet. Angela didn't call again. I didn't expect her to. Darren didn't reach out either. Good. Some endings don't need conversations. What surprised me most wasn't the relief from leaving the marriage, but the relief from leaving the pretending. Pretending everything was fine. Pretending the distance was normal. Pretending love hadn't changed shape. I realized something important in those quiet nights on my balcony. Loyalty means nothing when you give it to someone who's already left the room. I spent decades holding our marriage together with routine and memory. Now I was holding my life together with purpose. There were moments of sadness, of course. 32 years doesn't disappear without a trace. Sometimes I'd wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there. Sometimes I'd miss the idea of who we used to be, long before the distance took root. But grief isn't the enemy. It's proof you lived honestly. And every day that passed, the sadness softened. The hurt settled. The peace grew. Healing wasn't about forgetting Angela. It was about remembering myself. One evening, I sat on the balcony while the sun dipped low behind the buildings. The air was cool. Birds were quiet. Streetlights flickered on. And I realized something deep and simple. My life wasn't over. It was finally mine. Not shared through habit. Not shaped by someone else's choices. Not defined by betrayal. Just mine. I survived a heart attack. I survived the truth of a broken marriage. I survived being the last one to know. Now I was learning how to live without carrying everyone else's weight on my shoulders. And that freedom, that quiet, steady freedom, was worth every painful moment that led me here. Before I end this story, let me leave you with something I learned the hard way. A heart attack didn't just stop my body. It stopped my denial. It forced me to see the truth I had been walking around for years, pretending not to notice. People think betrayal is loud. They think it comes with raised voices, slammed doors, dramatic confessions. But the kind that destroys you? It's quiet. It's patient. It's built piece by piece in the spaces where love used to live. If there's one thing I want you to take from what I went through, it's this. Don't wait until your heart breaks to start listening to your life. Look at who stands beside you when you're weak. Look at who shows up, and who only pretends to. Look at who comforts you. And who comforts themselves with excuses. I didn't leave my marriage out of anger. I didn't expose the truth to embarrass anyone. I did it because peace is worth more than pride. And a quiet life built on honesty is worth more than a loud marriage built on lies. So let me ask you something. Have you been ignoring signs because the truth feels heavier than the lie you're holding on to? If you have, you're not alone. And you're not weak. You're just human. But sooner or later, life will ask you to choose. Stay in the comfort of what hurts. Or step into the unknown where you might finally heal. If my story gave you something to think about, if it reminded you that peace is possible, even after betrayal, then do me a favor. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Share your own truth. And if you want more stories told from a man who's lived a little, learned a lot, and refuses to sugarcoat life, subscribe. There's more to say. And I'm not done yet.